I'm in a comedy club, right? Like I should have some jokes. Yeah. Yeah, shout out to the ladies in the back. I feel like it's a bachelorette. What's going on? I'm not scared of a swivel. I'm Nurse Dana. I swivel all day.
Well, now you all understand why I said yes. So fast. They were like mystery guests, and I was like, what? And they were like Katherine, and I was like, done. So, do I have to turn it on?
Mine was already on.
Mine was not. Is it on now?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I broke a nail. I'm blaming the swivel chair.
Yeah.
Okay, I
They're
would
dangerous.
like to start
Yes.
because I had the wonderful privilege of going back through your IMDb journey and reminding myself of all the incredible things you've done over the years. Do you remember what your first credit acting job was?
I think it's Rooftops. I think Rooftops was a Robert Wise movie. He directed Sound of Music, and I think West Side Story, and he did a dance thing where these guys did capoeira. So it's like a Brazil, and they would fight each other with capoeira. This was in the 80s in New York. We shot it. Yeah. I think Rooftops, and then I was with Dennis Hopper, who ended up being my first husband, and he did a movie called, I think it ended up being called Do It the Hard Way. It was originally called Backtrack. It was for Vestron, and it was Dennis and Jodie Foster, and he was some hitman, and she was an artist on the run. And I played a waitress, and I had never acted really. I had one line, I think, in Rooftops, and then I did that, and and I delivered this cup of tea. She asked for something, and I say, we don't have any mint tea. That's what I said, and I was so nervous that the teacup, the whole thing was just shaking the whole time. It was so embarrassing. And then I did one other dance. I think I did one other, was it Brain Donors?
The first thing on your IMDb is Catch Fire.
Catch Fire is Backtrack, is Flash Fire.
Okay, got it.
That is it.
Got it.
So, yeah. Many, many name changes that didn't help the success of that film that no one's ever heard of with Dennis Hopper and Jodie Foster. Yeah. Catch Fire is, Backtrack is, whatever. And then Brain Donors, and then they might have come out in different orders, but I was a dancer who acted, who could talk. And so I got the two parts. And then when I did, what's it called? Catch Fire?
Catch Fire.
Catch Fire. When I did Catch Fire, I had to get Taft-Hartley, and I had to join the union. So that's how I joined my union. My SAG card actually says 1985.
Wow.
So, I'm going to cry when people are like, if your career's floundering, give it another 30, 40 years. You might get there. Yeah.
Did you find a love of acting through those roles, or were you already kind of interested in it?
I was a dancer who was really good at acting. So I was just okay, technically, I thought. I mean, I was a professional ballet dancer. I made it, but I don't think I was ever going to be a prima ballerina. I had started really late, and I just never think I was going to get to that level. And I don't know that I actually really cared about it, but I don't know that I was like, I don't know if I really want that much. But my thing that I love was the acting part, and I think it's why audiences related to me, because I was always acting something, even if the thing was abstract. And so, so then I was pregnant with Henry, my son. I was with Dennis. I'd moved to LA. I thought, okay, now I'm living with this wealthy man. I'll be able to do downtown dance, do the edgy stuff, and where it doesn't matter if I don't get paid, but it'll just be so conceptual and wonderful. And LA was 30 years behind New York, and there was none of that to be done. So I didn't know what I was going to do. And we moved into a temporary place, and they had because we were remodeling the house to make a room for a baby, and they had a little black and white TV they had left there, and the only channel I got was PBS, and there was a documentary, Sidney Pollack's documentary about Sandy Meisner. And I watched it, and I thought, I need to do that. I need to go to that guy and do what that guy's teaching, and I want to do that. And so someone said, well, call Sidney Pollack's office. And so I called his office. Sidney Pollack himself actually called me back and said, "This is where you find Sandy. Call this guy Jimmy." I kid you not. Sandy had this big fat guy, Jimmy, that used to go with him everywhere and was kind of like his manservant, and he took care of Sandy, and he was. And Dennis said, I said, but I haven't done anything. And I had this kooky picture, like, with this hat on. It was like the 80s when we dressed like, looking like we were Victorian, and I had this like Victorian hat, and this picture was the only picture I had of myself. So I bring him this ridiculous picture, and he says, and he's like, and Sandy had his larynx removed, so he only talked on the burp, and he was like, "What have you done?" And Dennis had told me to tell him, just tell him you want to be in the class more than anything. And I said, nothing. And he goes, nothing. And I'm like, no. I go, but I want to be in this class more than anything in the world. And he took me, and we loved each other. I loved him, and I learned how to act from him, and I do everything he said to do all day, every day. I still fall back on the Meisner technique and everything he taught me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did you have a moment where you felt like, okay, like they always say I made it, right? That's always like the phrase that people talk about. But really where you just thought like, oh, this career is like gonna work for me? Or do you feel like you've had that moment a million times and lost it? And
yesterday, Sarah Paulson hit me up on Instagram congratulating me.
Oh my God.
And I said, oh my God, I'm your biggest fan. And she wrote me back, oh my God, I'm your biggest fan. That's when I made it yesterday. I actually wrote her back and I said, I've arrived. And I meant it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I was like, I love her so much.
I mean, but surely just looking at all of the things you've done over the and some of like the biggest shows in television, sometimes the quick, like you're like one episode on, guys, the list is like incredible. You've got like Seinfeld, The Practice, NYPD Blue, ER.
Yes.
Which I love.
Okay, I have a funny, guys want a funny ER story? Yes. So my dad is a surgeon and he hates all the shows and, and he's Southern. I'm from Louisiana, and he always wants to tell me how BS they are and how they're all terrible. And so when my show came on, he was like, oh, this is really good. I mean, this is not like Grey's Anatomy or whatever. And so we have lunch with John Wells, who's an amazing boss. Halfway through the season, we have a lunch. At the end, we have a lunch. And he wants to know how he's doing. Like, okay? Like, how am I treating you? How's production going for you, the actor, which is very rare. And I said, oh, it's going so great, John. Even my dad is so proud of the show. He said, I told him what he said. He said, yeah. He says, we're not like those shows. We don't have people making out in the broom closet. And I said, John, I made out in the broom closet with gore and vagistic on ER. And I go, John, I was making out on ER in the broom closet with gore. And he's like, well, I mean, that was season 7. We'd already jumped the shark. And I was, so yeah.
We'd already jumped the shark.
Yeah.
When you look at your career, are there certain things that you kind of think like now you can look back and realize they were like a turning point for you?
So I've had these periods where I'm like, oh my God, cock of the walk. Oh my God, a feather duster. It's cock of the walk, feather duster. And so I had, God, what had happened? I was cast to star in this HBO series that Linda Bloodworth Thompson, you guys might know her, a Southerner, wrote Designing Women, wrote about Dallas. Lily Tomlin played my mother. Leslie Jordan played my gay Uncle Kenny. Mary Kay Place. I mean, the Kim Dickens, Gary Cole. This was like all my family in the show. It was an amazing show. I thought I've arrived. HBO was like the cock of the walk, the biggest thing. Nothing happened. And I just went, then I was like, I literally was doing like guest spots on Ghost Whisperer, and like I did some cheerleading show where I had this guy, I'm in the car. I was supposed to cry at something. And the guy's like, the AD's on the monitor. He's like, okay, cry and cry, 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 stop crying and cry, like it's like what? So I'm doing this horrible stuff, and I feel like I'm never gonna, like, what's happened to my career? And then I get a call to go in for, Billy Bob Thornton's movie, Jane Mansfield's Car. Mm-hmm. And and I was auditioning for a very small part, and she had just these little tiny bits here and there, but it was so small that I had to read the lead part, and so there was no way to do the lead part who was like so sexy and free to read the small part like the lead part. You just had to read the lead part. So I just read the lead part, and then he kept keeping me in the room, and I thought, well, something will happen. I guess I'm gonna get that little part. And I got a call a week later that I was not getting the part, and I just felt so like, ugh. So about a week later, I was still depressed. So I picked up my phone. I was calling my friend that worked on Cougar Town to see if I could do costume returns, and work in the costume department on Cougar Town. And I got a phone call from my agent, and they said, Billy Bob wants to talk to you about the movie. And I was like, oh my God, let me get out the script because I don't even remember that little part. I need to say something smart. So he called me and he said, I said, okay, what's the name of the part again? And they said, Donna. And I called my agent back. I go, oh my God, it's the big part. It's the lead part. It's the lead part he wants to talk to me about. And, I got on the phone, and he was just like, I just want to know how you'd feel about coming down to Georgia and playing Donna for us. And I was like, oh, yeah, that was the moment.
Yeah, that's an amazing, that was a really good impression.
Yeah. Billy Bob, yeah, I love him.
I also think, as someone who...
But I guess I was
sure.
going to say, sorry, it was such a long story that I forgot what I was talking about. But I'm long-winded. But I think that was the thing where it was like, that was the first opportunity that I'd had. I felt like there was this glass ceiling. Like I could see these actresses, and I thought, I love them, but I don't think they've got anything on me. Like I think I can play in this arena, but I just couldn't get in the game. And it kind of was like if you don't get your name made by getting a certain box office at this time and that time, and like it kind of happens that way. And so he let me in the game, and then I was doing scenes. I have 3 scenes with just me and Duvall in that movie. And I'm playing with Kevin and Billy Bob, and it was like it was fine. Like we were just rolling with it, and they were so generous. So I think that was the thing where I felt like that was like a game changer. It gave me a lot of confidence after that. And I don't think, I think I've had a hard time. I think not a hard time. I think I've struggled and stuff since then, like trying to get parts, and it's gotten me down sometimes, but I don't think I've lost my confidence in that moment. I got that, and then I got the campaign right after that with Will Ferrell, that movie. And I think doing those back to back, it was like I did a comedy with, I think, like the king of comedy, comedy movies, and I did a drama with Robert Duvall, and I'm good. Like I believe in myself.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There's so many levels, I feel like, to success in this business where, like, you land the part, it can be an incredible project.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily going to be a hit or be...
Often is it.
Right.
Usually it's the thing.
Yeah.
And it's not.
I was going to ask
thing.
if there was, like, one thing in particular, because, like, I have a couple of your shows, like, I loved Satisfaction. But there are, like, a couple shows that I'm just like, why wasn't this... Is there one that you still are like, why wasn't this bigger?
Well, the Linda Bloodworth thing about Dallas was really freaking funny, and I thought that would have been great, the 1-hour Dallas comedy. But, I really thought that Katie Keene was really beautiful.
Yeah.
Katie Keene was really beautiful. That was partly because of COVID. Like, we were going to come back, and then New York was a morgue, and they just shut it down. So, yeah.
Yeah, that happened. That whole well, now like the CW era is like kind of over.
I know, but Katie Keene, if you guys want to check it out, it's on Max. It's a musical,
it's
very LGBTQ friendly, and it's kind of like Miss Maisel Beautiful. It's kind of a 50s-esque kind of vibe of New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has that kind of comic book 50s feeling. Yeah.
Is there like the one that got away for you? Is there a role that you really thought you had and then it slipped?
No.
That's great.
No. I mean, yeah, there's been some that I didn't get, that would have been real game changers. And then you see these other people have these careers that are game changers. But I like to live life in a forward direction, and I just don't want to live in regret. I feel like it's kind of just to crap all over like what I have, or like to put down what I have, and I feel like I have a lot. And even if I didn't get this success on the Pit, like my life is rich. I've had like a really beautiful life, and so a big and beautiful, expansive life being an actress, And if that's why this is also so amazing, you guys, because like, I'm so used to not getting any attention. Or just like praise, or just like, this it feels like a warm bath. It's like everyone's like, oh, like it just feels like this nice hug.
Yeah.
And I got conditioned to not expect it at all. So that when it's happened, like this thing with the response to the Pit, it's been really, really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you find the Pit? Was that just another classic audition? Was it brought to you?
So the Pit came along with another audition for Righteous Gemstones.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was up for that, and I had played the character similar to that. I mean, just a big Southern loudmouth in the campaign, the Will Ferrell movie. And so my agents just thought I was a shoo-in for that. They were trying to get them to offer it to me. And so I get both of the auditions, and, I'm on paper, I'm a Southerner, I'm right for it. And I just thought, I was okay. Sometimes I do an audition, I do my best. I have 2 days to do it. And it's it came out all right. I thought I was all right. But something about Dana, Noah wrote this letter. I don't know if you guys have heard about this letter, but Noah wrote this letter, and I think he still sends it out to everybody that auditions for the Pit, and talks about what they're looking for. And now they want this top-to-toe immersion, like this at all times. You're invested in what you're doing. You're always busy. You're not standing around waiting for your line. And he wrote leave your ego and bring your creativity. And one thing about me is that I was always kind of little bit of a leading lady looking lady, but inside I was a total weirdo. And so writers were like, it's our unicorn. But TV executives were like, okay, no, Mary can't be weird. She's either Mary or she's Rhoda, and Mary isn't weird. So, Mary wasn't going to be weird. So I just thought, oh, I can be I can be my kind of weird self in this. And I just brought it all. And I don't know what it was. I put it down. I gave it to my agents. I put it down on tape. I gave it to them, and I asked them about it. And they're like, oh, they don't know what they want. They're seeing everybody. And they're like, but the Righteous Gemstones, you're going to get that. We're going to try to get them to offer it to you. And they kept going. I was like, oh, I thought the Pit was kind of good. And it just kept going. It just kept going. And then I did a Zoom with John. And it was really spastic. They didn't have a Zoom waiting room. And I was away from home, and I didn't have any clothes for Dana, and I had to borrow a ring light from somebody, and it was all super stressful. And they didn't have an extension cord, and I was at the hardware store 20 minutes before the audition getting an extension cord to set up the ring light. It was just ah! And then that got on, and the Zoom was upside down. I'm like, sorry. I put it right back inside up, and then I fucked up my lines, and then I was like, oh, can I start over again? And John, I love John Wells so much, and he's like, yes. He goes, but that was exactly how you played that scene. And I was like, okay. So, and then the guy that was reading with me, the poor thing, his next line in the next scene his first line was, do we have any Mirapinum Pixis?
Oh my gosh.
Which he flubbed. And I was like, oh, welcome to my world, buddy. And then he got nervous, and he needed to drink some water. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, take your time. You got this. I just sort of flipped the tables, and they were really laughing. And so I said to my agent, I think they enjoyed me, but I don't know if they think I'm right for Dana. And it just kept going. And then he asked me to do another scene, and I was like, okay, guys, I'm a camp counselor, okay? I counsel camp at my own camp where my daughter was going this year, where I went to camp. I'm like, I'm going to be in the woods in 2 weeks, so if you need anything from me,
get it now.
Get it now. Of course, they called me the night before. I had to do it in the morning. And I don't know. I just think the gods were with me. Every now and then, do you guys get something? It doesn't even matter what you do, and you're like, oh, I don't know why, but I have this special sauce for this today. And it was just one of those the gods were with me moments, and I knew it was on point, and I got it.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's also such an interesting, I feel like the Pit was such a gamble, because the idea of spending 15 hours with people is incredible, the real-time element of it. And 4 episodes in, I feel like I sat back and I was like, this was risky, because you're almost kind of giving away some character development, right? Because we're only spending 15 hours with these people.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to follow this person and find out what they did 5 years ago and what made them want to be a nurse. And from your perspective, did you feel did you have conversations? Did you want a lot of kind of backstory about her, or were you kind of just diving into 15 hours?
They sat us all down before the show, and we had doctor school for 2 weeks. So during that 2 weeks, we went to doctor school, went to mini medical school, and they had doctors come in and nurses horses and talk to us, and we learned to trach and sew and all this stuff. Yeah, I'm good at traking.
I can't even watch someone get
You do
trained.
not want me to sew you up. I'm like, it's way too frustrating. But I don't know why. I just got that in there right away every time. But
All right.
what were we talking about?
Backstory and like getting
Yes,
to
and
know,
so
yes.
every day they would bring people in and tell them their backstory, and they never brought me in. Then finally, the last moment of the last day, they were like, "Your mother died when you were 16, and you have 3 girls," and they told me all this stuff. And so it's funny. I had thought that she had lost a parent, and I had felt that she felt like a lot of one of my aunts. And I'm from New Orleans, from a big Catholic family on my mother's side. And I had this aunt that was kind of sexy and tough, and she was only 7 years older than me because it was this giant family, Andre. And she used to say to my grandmother, I thought she was so cool. My grandmother had, she was in the 70s, like a long yellow car with like a brown hardtop. I'm sure she got it on sale. And my aunt would say, I'm not driving that bruised banana woman. And we just thought she was so cool. And so I just imagined that Dana was like Andre back in the day. But I also, I don't know why. I love, like, sometimes I think I read stuff and like my subconscious hooks up with the writer's subconscious, like that there's just, and I had felt that there was something like in grief with her, like that she had lost something. And so when they said that, it really made sense. So it's kind of like, she's like a faded tough girl. You know what I mean? She's like a faded, sexy, tough girl. Like she was a sexy, tough girl. And so even the choice to like part my hair down the middle, like I feel like she has like a Frozen hairdo a little bit. Like this is how she wore it in the 80s, And like I tried to kind of have her a little bit stuck in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about just the filming of the Pitt,
Yeah.
because like continuity alone. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I was like, "You weren't allowed to change like anything for how long did it take you to film that season?"
7.5 months. Yeah.
Like, and it's like your hair has to look the same,
Yeah.
you have to look the same, but also even there's always just like so many people in the background of every shot.
Yeah.
Like, was it almost like a marathon to film that show?
In what way?
Just like you have to be so every single scene. There's probably not every single scene. Look, there's scenes with 2 people. There's scenes with 4 people, but usually
Not
there's
really.
at least like 10 in the background,
yeah.
right?
So we know the background really well.
Yeah.
I call them what we do because I don't know if you guys know, but I'm there all day long every day because I'm the charge nurse.
Right.
I'm in the center of this glass space, and so other people would do their scenes and they would leave, and I was always like.
Right.
Tell everybody hey, and so like it was just like oh my god. So it was really rigorous. It was kind of painful at first because I stand up like 10, 12 hours a day. But I call them puppet shows, like what we do in the background. So I was like, we'll make a little puppet show over here. We'll make a puppet show over there. And so like. I remember one day, like, I went up to John Wells. I said, I was called to this scene, but he didn't see me. And I go, John, I'm called to this scene, but you don't really see me. And I saw his eyes flash. I thought, is she really going to ask me to go? And I just saw his eyes like be like, uh-huh. And I was like, would you like a puppet show over here? And he's like, he says to me, well, Catherine, I always love a puppet show. So we call them puppet shows. So we make puppet shows, and the extras are so good, and they remember everything that I'm supposed to do. So if I'm not doing it, they'll point up at the board like that, like they're asking me. They're reminding me, you looked at the board here, and then they'll go like, oh, like get the phone, and I'm like, right, like because I got the phone there. I'm like, got you. So they have my back, and we just make these little dances together. Yeah.
Is a lot of that planned out like ahead of time and blocking,
No.
or you're finding it in the scene?
Yeah, if you're in the background, we find it in the scene. We make our puppet show.
Wow.
That's
And
what
then
I
you
call
have
it.
to do it 100 times over.
I
and-
enjoy it. So I did
great.
this job years ago, talking about jobs. So I was on Judging Amy, and this is where I learned when they wrote the top to toe immersion thing. That's part of why I thought, oh, they might want me because I'm into that. Like, I'm really into looking like I'm real and I know what I'm doing, and because I think it brings the audience into the material more. Like if a background player's pop out at you, it's not great, right? And so it takes you out of the story. So I would sit at this legal desk. I think it was a DA. I would sit in the courtroom all the time, and I'd be like, well, I guess no one's telling me what to do. I got to figure out. I want to do these papers, and and so I would make up these little puppet shows, and I would just do them in every scene. And it kind of gave me something to do. So it keeps me engaged. Yeah. I'm not a big reader. I don't like to get into another imaginary circumstance while I'm doing an imaginary circumstance. You know, it's like it doesn't really work for me to read on set.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys were you didn't have all the scripts at the start of the show. You were getting them as it went. So you get the script that she gets
punched in the face.
Punched in the face.
Yeah.
Did you know it was coming?
Yeah. They told me, I don't know how far in, just the makeup people said, we have to do a test on you, and because you're gonna wear a black eye for like the second half of the show. You know, to be honest with you, I knew it wasn't really a beauty show.
Sure.
From the jump, and so I trust them. Scott Gemmell, our creator, the writer. I don't know how many of you have seen the show, but there's just so often when I do a show, they might just tack on, like they wanted me to have a character, right? I'm not the lead person, but it's like, oh, she's a dancer, or oh, she's Southern, or oh, she's, you know, and then they give you a boyfriend for like 2 episodes, or, you know, whatever. You just have these little things tacked on. With Scott, like everything adds up. You know, everybody paid off at the end, right? Everything added up. And so I just trusted them so much that I felt like it was exciting. Like, oh, I'm going to get punched in the face. Something real's going to happen, right? I'm going to have something to play, you know?
I also felt like I perhaps ignorantly did not realize that was such like a common thing. And when they start talking about it and she's like, yeah, I got punched in the face again. I was like, again? This is a thing that happens to nurses? And so it was just really like, I think another important storyline for the show.
Definitely. And there's all these rules around it. Like I went to county. There's all these rules basically about being able to touch a violent patient. Like the patient kind of has to do something before they can get restrained by the security officers. So it leaves the nurses really vulnerable. I don't know that I don't know exactly how they all feel about it, but when I went down to county, there was like security officers standing around because they had a patient, like a psych patient that was pretty out of control. But they kind of, I guess it's like this kind of dance where they can't really do anything until it's already kind of out of control. So it's a little tricky for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you guys were still filming as the show started airing.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize pretty quickly like what a hit it was, or were you guys still kind of in the filming bubble a bit?
Well, I have 2 things to say about that. One is, so the fire started like the day before we aired. And so it was a super bummer. And so we had a couple of days off. But when we came back, the show had aired. And so it was like, I see Noah and everyone in LA is like freaked out and sad. Most of us had all had to be evacuated at some moment or another. And I see Noah from across the way, and I look at him and I go, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And then when he came over, I was like, we didn't want to celebrate because it was a horrible time, but I was like, I think we have a show. And he's like, I know. And so, it was very, very cool. But also, you know, we made the show in a bubble. Like, we had no idea, like, what was going to happen. And it was just a lot of camaraderie and working together. And one day, people start showing up that know the show, like smaller parts, people that have smaller parts. And it was literally like, get out of here, rat. Like, they just seemed like a spy or something. It's like, you know, because we had just been in the secret thing together. And now people were on it that had viewed it. And it was just a very different thing. Like, remember when reality television first started? Yeah. It was really real. And then it became incredibly self-conscious, right? And so it's not as interesting. So it just was weird to have people on that had seen it. It felt like, oh my God, like we've been invaded, sort of. It was a weird feeling.
You have been on a number of like medical shows over the year. Did you feel pretty quickly that this one like felt different, even on the set?
The set is incredibly real. Mm-hmm. You walk onto the set and it's just like a fully built out emergency department. I mean, it's just fully built out. Yeah. And, you know, if you've spent any time in the hospital, it's a little triggering. You're like, oh, okay. You know, it literally took me a minute to, okay, this is okay. It had a little subconscious effect on me, you know, and I thought, okay, it's going to be all right. And I was really glad that it didn't last.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like you got the fluorescent lights. I thought, is this going to feel terrible? Like to go in here every day, you know, it's dry, right? It's very dry, the set.
Yeah.
But it was so fun. Like, it was so fun to make. And it was so physical. When you were saying, is it a marathon? Yeah. Usually when you do a show, you'll shoot everything that gets shot inside, you know, Trauma One. And then everything that's shot inside the boss's office. And then, you know, all in different days, you shoot all these different things. On our show, we go from scene 1 to scene 2 to scene 3 to scene 4 to scene 5 to scene 6 to scene 7, you know, like that. And so that way the set could age and they didn't have to go back and say, oh, there was blood, there's not blood, there's, you know, they just shot it in order like a play. And because they don't care how we look, there's no lighting setups, and they have these lights, and allegedly they do something to them to make you look a little bit better. Like they have a panel and they're, I don't know. You know, I'm one of those people that's like, who's that old lady? Oh, it's me. You know, like I look in the mirror and I think I look good. I'm like, how did my mom get on TV? But you know, we don't have any breaks for lighting setup. So we kind of just, you never have that. Usually what happens on a show is like you block it, then your stand-ins come in, then they light it for like 40 minutes and you sit in your chairs in like a green room or something. Here it was like, we would light, they would, you know, try something. I mean, we would block it, and then we would just start shooting it. Yeah. We just start shooting it. You might stand around for a couple of minutes for them to do something, but maybe 10, but you weren't released. You just stood there, and then you just start going. And then they come up with a different plan, and then you start shooting. And I was a dancer. I don't know if you guys know that. I was a professional ballet dancer. So for me, and also just doing it so long, like, there's a part of it that's really nice where you feel your craft. I'm sure you guys have that in, like, any jobs that you do where you just feel like your experience and it feels good, like you know how to solve problems. Yeah. So I liked that about it. Like, oh, I know how to get over here and make this work, or I can see they want to, and I now can act and do that, right? And I couldn't do that when I was younger. I was so into the acting, you know, but now it's like, okay, and he's about to pass, and then I'll turn like this and they can take me to this person, or like, they're like, do you need a mark to when to come in for no? I go, no, I know. And I know he wants this much time to have a feeling, but not too much time. And I'm like, and, you know, Robbie, you know, like, it's, so I get a kick out of it. Yeah.
How, like, did you guys do a lot of takes on that show? Because it was filmed that way. Was it pretty quick?
I don't even know. I don't know. You're just in it. You know, a lot of times they were doing a lot of takes because it was actually really beautiful to shoot on that. I hadn't had that feeling actually since I was doing Billy Bob's movie, and like, you know, John Hurt drove up in this old car, and it where you're just like, oh, this expanse of this thing. But like, when Noah walked in the set the first day, and I was here, and I was like, oh, it's like a Western, you know, because you never have a shot. In a TV show, you're on a little set, right? You're in the office set. You're in this, and it's a room. It's just a room. And it was like Noah was coming from across there, like we were going to have like a shootout, right? Like, he came to me from far, and he had a scene with somebody else. He had the scene with Princess and Perla, and then he comes up, and then he's at the desk, and then we have a scene, and then... So there's a lot of moving camera shots and things like that. So we do a lot of takes, but it's mainly for camera and getting movement into the show.
Sure.
I don't think they belabor, like, getting it right.
Yeah. I also think so many people probably think, and I'm curious for your perspective, of like a guest star role, a one episode role on a Seinfeld, you know, a quick pop in, that might be like easier than sitting in a role for 15 episodes, but you're also like showing up to a set that you're unfamiliar with. Like, do you find that more challenging than getting to like live in a character for a long time?
Yeah. I did an episode, I think it was when I did The Practice. Was it Raphael Sparge? Was he on The Practice? Was that his show?
I think so.
Anyway, he said to me, doing a guest spot is like trying to take like do a swan dive in a paper cup, you know? And so it's really hard to do a guest spot, you know? Yeah. I mean, getting to live in a character is a joy. And then the set that we have really adds to the lived-in feeling because the set is real. And, like, I literally have candies in the drawer, and that's my desk. And when people go and sit in my chair, I'm kind of like... I don't really like it. I'm just like... I know it's just Dana's desk, but it's kind of like my desk, so, like, get out of my desk. You know, like, I can't feel like I can say it, but I'm just like, I guess I'll just sit over here, you know? So it feels very real and lived in, and I think that it betters the acting on the show. It's very hard to seem lived in and real in a character you're doing once with people you don't know. And often, you know, different shows are more welcoming than others.
Sure.
You know, so Yeah.
Did you feel that kind of like ownership over Dana pretty quickly?
I felt like I wore Dana easily, and I think it's why I got it. Like I usually know. Often I have a feeling when I'm going to get something. Like sometimes even before I audition. But I felt like I wore her easily. Like she wasn't hard for me to find. But I did cry a lot about that accent. I cried a lot. I literally cried. What am I doing to myself? Why don't I just talk in my regular voice? Why am I doing this? And my acting coach, who's, God love her, Martha Gaiman, now the artistic director of the Actors Studio, my acting coach and BFF for 30 years. I'm so proud of her. So I can take her on authority. And so I was crying about it. I was like, it sounds terrible, and I don't have enough time. And because, I got it like 2 weeks before I had to be there. And she said, would you ever go on stage and play this person and not do an accent? And I said, no. She said, then just keep going. And it worked out. I mean, it worked out. I was watching Mayor of Easttown.
Yeah.
And it's a different Pennsylvania accent, but I was like, at least I could listen to some stuff. And so I was listening to it nonstop. I'm in the bathtub. And I've got my iPad in the bathroom listening, and an extras reel came on, and they started talking about the accent and how hard it was. And then the accent dialect coach came on, and I looked her up on IMDb Pro, and I called her, and she said, I just did Kate, but this person did all the other people, and she's from Pennsylvania. I'm like, yes, please, her. And her name is Suzanne Solby, and she taught me how to talk Dana.
I remember when that show came out, there was so much, it's like
Yeah.
famously one of the hardest accents.
It is very, very hard, especially if you're a Southerner. So I would do a lot of hikes, and sometimes I would take a mask so that I could like talk to myself without people knowing, and I would just run the lines. I had them written. I would write them out on my notes in my phone, and I would look at them, and then I would run the lines over because there's such a different musculature. Yeah, that's how I got it.
I saw a thing about the actual science of like Australians use fewer muscles, and that's why they talk. And I'm like, what? It is truly like a science of how people speak.
But I can't do that.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. Even when, I can't think about how my mouth is moving. I just have to get it somehow, right? That's me.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, yeah, and you just move your tongue more. I was like, what? What does it sound like? And so, but yeah, it was really hard. And just the gymnastics of it it feels like tongue gymnastics.
As if like medical jargon isn't already hard to say. Just
What?
Like in medical jargon is hard enough without adding the accent.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, there was a lot of crazy words in there. I'm just glad I didn't have to do any of that surgery. That was the thing.
did you get to trach anybody?
No.
Oh, but you were so good at it.
I was. It was wasted talent. Wouldn't be the first time. No. Yeah.
I want to make sure we get to any questions
Yeah.
that you all have, but I will throw out one last one.
Yes.
Which is just like, what do you think is the most difficult part of like being an actor and like staying in Hollywood? Because it's like, it is a million things have to come together to, be successful.
I think that the key is, perseverance and hard work. I mean, it is just perseverance and hard work.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard work. I mean, you really. I try to every audition I do. I mean, that I try to make it the very best thing, as if I'm in a Clint Eastwood movie. Like I try to my hair the way I would have it, my nails the way I would have it, my accent the way I would have it. Like I give it everything I have because I know everybody wants that part. So any opportunity, I just take it. But I think the most difficult thing, or the thing that is hardest to learn in Hollywood, is how to advocate for yourself in a diplomatic way. And maybe that's the same with every job, but it is really nice when you can say like, I want my hair like this, I want my wardrobe like that, because I feel that, XYZ. Like in Billy Bob's movie, he was like, I remember my mom used to wear these pedal pushers, and my character was so sex obsessed that I was like, I just want her in a dress, because I think there's something subconscious about a dress that you could just lift it up, things like that. So getting to the place where you feel comfortable to really advocate for yourself is probably the hardest part to learn in Hollywood.
Yeah. Okay, does anybody have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, let's go right here.
Yeah.
Is there a word or phrase or sentence that gets you into that accent? Would you share it, and would you give us a little bit?
Oh, Dana. You know what? There was one that I There was it that was Abbott's NBC vet from last night. The one I think that I like that was the easiest for me to get as Dana was, and when I got it, I was like, okay, and it was like, that's Abbott's NBC vet from last night, still waiting on next to kin. But like once I got that line, so I would like go, that's Abbott's NBC vet from last night, still waiting on next to kin, and it was kind of hard to get that one, but you know, I think that was the one. I think that was the one.
Amazing. Anybody else? Sure.
So, as a trained dancer, how do you feel that might help you in your acting?
Oh, it informs everything. I think that I express myself with my whole body because of that. And I just, if for some reason I don't know how they move, I really feel weird. Like Dana has a different move. Like Dana's whole move is very athletic. I kind of realized part the way through maybe the first episode, I was like, oh, she's a basketball coach. Like, I think she's just a basketball coach on the sideline. Like, what's happening? Who am I going to put in what? Who am I going to take out? What's going on? 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 It's like, so there's that. And like with Katie Keene, it was all, I thought about the way that Gloria Granville looked in the comic book. And so that she's always like Katie. And it's always almost like a comic book still. And literally the fingers in the drawings were always like this. So I feel really lucky that I'm just this full body person, which also was, I realized, really hurt me when we went to self-tapes and we don't go in person. Like nobody can see all the little business that I bring. And I think that's why I got all those jobs. And it was really hard for me to get work in that weird bubble.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, sure.
They're like, can she stop talking? When is lunch? Okay, go, yes.
I would like an anecdote about Three Sisters, which I love dearly.
Oh, wow. An anecdote about Three Sisters. You know, one thing that I think about a lot, so Peter Bonners, that played the dad, like, he was on Newhart. I don't know if anybody here is old enough to remember the Bob Newhart show, but it was like a 70s sitcom that, like, was one of the things that made me want to be an actor. And he played my dad, and I remember we had some like knives or whatever, and I was supposed to be cutting something. He goes, Katherine, that's not how you cut. And he showed me how to cut, and then he was like, Katherine, I said, well, I don't have good knives. He says, you're on TV. You need to go buy some good knives. So that was one. And then also Gary Marshall, the famous Gary Marshall, the director, came on to Three Sisters and played my boss. And I loved Gary so much. And that's why I'm in Valentine's Day, because Gary loved me. Everybody wanted to be in Valentine's Day. And he was like, Katherine, I know you still look good in the bikini. And so that's how I got in Valentine's Day. But he played my boss, and it was just a great joy. And I remember he took me out to lunch one time, and he showed me his calendar. And he said, I check all the good, I circle all the good days, and like I put an X or whatever on the bad days. He had a thing, and he goes, and he showed me his thing, and there would be like maybe one in the month would get like the X, and he says they're mostly good days. I mean, he was just loved Gary Marshall. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh, sure. Okay, hold on. We'll go over here first.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you for your honest, brutally honest portrayal of nursing. I'm in the medical field, and it's so refreshing to see a show that they actually get the intubation right.
Ah, yes, yes.
And I just want to say thank you because it brings more awareness what nursing really is.
Oh, thank you. Those have been the biggest compliments. Yeah, and just so you know, they really, like, they care about getting it right. There's a charge nurse on set all day, every day. There is real nurses in the scenes and all day, every day. And there's two practicing, what do you call it? What's the main guy called? What's Robbie? The head doctor?
Oh, attendant.
There's two attendings on set, real ones, all day, every day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. So they care.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. And they made the show because they care, because, you know, let's face it, John Wells doesn't need any more money. But they felt that they needed to bring attention to what was going on in the medical community, particularly after COVID. And that's where the genesis of the creation of the Pitt was, where it came from.
And it's renewed some nurses that I work with because after COVID, it was horrible. And many are leaving the field because of
Yep.
their experiences. And the show reminded
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's amazing.
Yep. Yep. And I based Dana off of some real nurses that saved me in some really tough times that I had just in the last few years. And like in and out, I was talk about it later in something. I'm not supposed to spill all that, but I had my own health crisis, and I ended up in the emergency department a few more times than I would have liked. And there was a nurse in there that was like, you know, and what she said and how she said it, and it really changed me. And, you know, you realize that it matters. And so I based Dana in part on her as well. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So the Pitt was my husband and I's favorite show this year,
Yes.
the one that we wait and watch live like at 9 p.m. on Thursday.
Yes.
So good. And one of the things that was so great about it was I love the medical aspect, but I also love the little tidbits you get into like the characters'
Yes.
personal lives. And I'm curious, kind of with season 2, what you hope we learn about Dana, or kind of like where you see her character going.
I would hope we learn that Dana decides to come back to work at the Pitt. Because I feel like I just got here. I would like to stay at the table, please. Yeah, that's it. That's it. But to be honest, like, if they said, you know, Catherine, we need you to come in and say they went that away, like, I would do it, you know? Like, I'm happy to stand and say, over here, everybody, like, whatever. Anything they want me to do, I'm there for it. So.
Has season 2 started filming yet?
No, they're going to start shooting
They
soon.
say you have to do puppet shows all season, and you're like, I'm there.
Puppet shows all day. John Wells.
Anybody else? Sure.
Do you have any funny anecdotes from Seinfeld with Jerry or with Louise or Jason Alexander?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I had also never seen Seinfeld. So I had never seen Melrose Place. And I had never seen Seinfeld. So I was a professional ballet dancer, and I was really poor. And then I married Dennis Hopper, who was really old. And so I never had a TV. And then when I got in with a TV, I was too poor to have a TV, and I was always traveling in a foreign country dancing. And then when I got with Dennis, all he watched was CNN and football. And so he would watch like high school football. Like he would watch Austin high school football in California. Like it would go on and on. So I hadn't seen either of those things. And I was like, these guys are really funny, you know, like. But I can remember watching them. I was on an episode called The Beard, and Jason's dating a girl that I guess when she takes off her hat, he realizes is bald. And I just remember him standing there and like improvising that scene, and he was like, she's bald, treeless, you know, blah, blah, blah. And he just like keeps doing this thing, and it was just so brilliant. It was just like watching improv, and it was just really, really, really fun. So yeah, that was fun.
Aside from like the medical stuff, obviously, is
Yeah.
it word perfect? Do you guys have a little bit of freedom, like to improvise is weird, but you know, to kind of like make
I
it your
try to
own?
be word perfect because it's just part of my technique. You know,
Sure.
Sandy Meisner used to have us do scenes from Waiting for Lefty and like all these old plays, and the reason why is so that you get used to saying dialogue that doesn't feel familiar to you. And so I try to say, I ask if I'm going to change anything because it shows respect, and also it's like maybe they thought about that. You know what I mean? So I try to do it exactly as they say it. And then if I mess up, you know, then I get a lot of grace because they know that I tried.
Sure.
So no, I don't play that way. I mean, they don't mind if it's messy, and they don't mind if it overlaps. They don't want it to look too sterile. They want it to look real. I asked John when we first started, what are you going for? You know? And he said, I said, is it like a documentary? He says, no, in a documentary, the subject is determined. Like, you know, like we know we're looking at this, right? We're looking at that, and we're all focused on, you know, whatever, the documentary about bulls or whatever. But in the pit, we want to feel like we're inside it, right? So they don't care if it's sloppy or if it overlaps or, you know, you kind of goes like that. But we try to do the dialogue. I do anyway. Yeah.
All right, we have time for one or two more questions.
One more. That
Anybody?
guy in the back.
Oh, sure. Let's go to the back.
Had a hand up for a minute.
The practical effects are just astonishing.
I know.
They're like gory.
They're like what?
Gory.
Oh yeah.
Down on set.
Do I what?
Did you ever get like creeped out or like?
Grossed out on.
Oh, Yeah, I try not to look at any of that. I really do. And like, but then sometimes you turn around, like one time I was like, there was a whole like naked male and like a big guy and like all this business. And I didn't know because, you know, there's the coordinators, the intimacy coordinators are so discreet. And so you're running through it in your rehearsal and everybody's covered up. And then you get and you're like yelling at somebody and you're just like, got all this business in your face, and you're like, okay. I mean, I remember being in some scenes, and I was like, well, okay, here we go. Or like, you know, somebody's got like a gunshot and their boobs are out, and you're just like, oh, I didn't know that was gonna happen. You know, it doesn't happen until they say action, right? Because they're covered up on, you know, and they're not exactly my business. I'm doing my business, and so, you know, and then I get there and I'm seeing stuff for the first time. But I will say that one time I was during the MCI, there was a guy and he had a gunshot wound to his chest. And his shirt was open, and I was looking at it, and I was like, how did they do that wound? I mean, there's this body, and you can't even see where the wound attaches or anything. His whole body was a piece, and I was like, from here, and I couldn't tell that his body was a piece. Like that it was they had fabricated this body. The guy is a wizard that does it. Don't remember his name right now.
Look it up. You can Google it.
He is a total wizard, and apparently, like it was a real clinch that we got him. So yeah,
It's also so brave to do a show where continuity does matter and have that much blood, because blood splatter, having to copy it from one scene to the next.
those are decals. The blood
Really?
pools are decals, and there's another wizard. There's a decal blood pool making wizard, and Nina Ruscio, who is our designer, our whole set designer, art director, she said that this gal, like, everybody was out of work from the strike, so we were able to get like the very best of everybody. But yeah, it's like you can pick it up like a mat, like it's almost like a mat, and it looks like those ads of nail polish when they have the drop of nail polish and it's really shiny, right? It looks like that, and it's just like a mat, and you like flap it down. It's heavy, and they just drop it down, so it's dimensional and heavy, and they can pick them up and drop them down, and only some of the blood is applied.
Right. If it's
Yeah.
on you, I'm assuming it's.
But and on the floor too. There's some applied blood, but there's a lot of it is just these mats. Yeah, I know.
Amazing.
I know.
All right. I think, does anyone have any final questions? We're pretty much at time. Oh, sure. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm sure there's a lot, but what is kind of like the greatest thing that you've taken from the Meisner technique?
Okay, I would say two things. One is just that it's moment-to-moment reality, right? And so it's always like, so one of the famous Meisner things is like you were supposed to, his exercise is that you come to the door and you have something that you want, and there's a person in the room and they're doing an activity. And their task is that activity they have to get done, and they have to have a reason they've made up while they have to get that activity done. And you have a reason that you've got to get something from that person, right? So what that teaches me is like, in both of those settings, both of those people know where they've come from and where they're going, right? And so it's like where I'm coming from, where I'm going, and just living in the moment. It's like the biggest thing that makes acting great, you know? If you've planned it all out, you know, you're doing a puppet show by yourself, right? But if you're just in the moment with somebody, you know, the whole thing can just grow. So I would say that. And then the other thing he said was, don't do something until something happens to make you do it. So meaning like, you know, it's just like not artifice. Like, don't sigh unless you really have to sigh. Like, don't do something until something happens to make you do it. And what was the other thing? Well, one is a character is how you do what you do. But there was one really good one I was going to share, and I just forgot it. Don't do something until something happens. Oh, he didn't say it like this, but that a lie will lead to a lie, but a truth will always lead to a truth. So, like, if you think you're supposed to cry and you try to make yourself start crying, you're in just this lying, faking situation, and you've cut yourself off from your instrument, right? If you feel you have to make yourself cry here, for me, it's weird to explain it this way, but this is like kind of the craft of it. If I like make myself like have a feeling that I don't have, like my body my whole instrument's like, oh, we're just dead now. Like I'm not actually having any real feelings. But if I allow myself to not cry and not boss my instrument around, I will start crying over there. You know, if it's a scene where I'm supposed to break down, I might not cry right there, but if I trust, I'll have the emotion over there. Like, so a truth will lead to a truth, a lie will lead to a lie. That's a big one too. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
All right, I think we're at time.
All
Thank
right,
you,
thank you.
Catherine.
That was really fun.
Very good.